Ladies and gentlemen, you are connected to the Oriental Carbon and Chemicals Limited conference call. Please stay connected. The call will start shortly. Participants, you are connected to the Oriental Carbon and Chemicals Limited conference call. Kindly stay connected. The call will start shortly. Participants, you are connected to the Oriental Carbon and Chemicals Limited conference call. Please stay connected. The call will start shortly. Ladies and gentlemen, good day and welcome to the Q1 FY22 earnings conference call of Oriental Carbon and Chemicals Limited. This conference call may contain forward-looking statements about the company, which are based on the beliefs, opinions, and expectations of the company as on date of this call. These statements are not the guarantees of future performance and involve risks and uncertainties that are difficult to predict. As a reminder, all participant lines will be in the listen-only mode, and there will be an opportunity for you to ask questions after the presentation concludes. Should you need assistance during the conference call, please signal an operator by pressing star then 0 on your touchtone phone. Please note that this conference is being recorded. I now hand the conference over to Mr. Akshat Goenka, Promoter and Joint Managing Director of Oriental Carbon and Chemicals Limited. Thank you, and over to you, Mr. Goenka.
Good afternoon and a very warm welcome to everyone. Along with me, I have Mr. Anurag Jain, CFO, and SGA, Investor Relations Advisors. Before we begin, I hope you and your loved ones are safe. We have uploaded our results and investor presentation for the quarter on the stock exchanges and company website. Hope each one of you have had a chance to go through this. Quarter 1 FY22 was a challenging quarter with the onset of the second wave of COVID-19. We saw the demand slowing down in both domestic and global markets. There was substantial slowdown during the months of April and May due to lockdown restrictions of varying degrees across different regions. The entire auto industry faced challenges on the back of demand disruption. OEM demand was also hit with many automotive companies shutting down their factories for weeks. On account of second wave, we witnessed more localized and micro lockdowns and restrictions imposed rather than a nationwide lockdown. Despite these headwinds, we have reported total income of rupees 86.5 crores with an EBITDA of rupees 22.8 crores and PAT of rupees 12.4 crores for Q1 FY22. Raw materials prices have continued the existing trend in Q1 FY22 as we had communicated during the last quarter. However, we feel that now they have peaked. The spike in raw material prices have impacted our margins as the pass-through generally happens with a lag of 3 to 6 months. However, with our continuous initiatives towards controlling costs and focused efforts on improving operational efficiencies, we have managed to limit the impact on EBITDA. Now I would like to update you on our operations. Manufacturing facilities continue to operate normally at both our plants. We took all necessary precautions while ensuring safety and well-being of all our employees. The company has also organized vaccination for all employees and their family members. Coming to our expansion project, we faced delays due to logistical challenges created by the onset of the second wave. Therefore, the phase 1 of 5,500 tons per annum insoluble sulfur line and 42,000 tons per annum sulfuric acid line in Dharuhera is now expected to be commissioned by October. I would also like to inform all shareholders that the board has approved a revised dividend policy which is available on the website of the company. This is a very good and very liberalized policy which states our intention of paying close to 50% of profit after tax out as dividend. This again underlines our commitment to all shareholders and reinforces what we have been saying over the last years that we will reward shareholders. Our company believes in addressing the requirements of their customers. Our company strengthens the business of its customers through the development of customized grades, possibly the widest global range. We intend to continue to deepen our relationship with customers, strengthening our wallet share. The demand situation is also robust and it has picked up. There are some effects due to COVID maybe in Russia and Far East Asia, but by and large demand is now robust. Our company has always given utmost importance to research. Our company's objective is to enhance product quality and performance. In order to achieve it, our company has made investments in a new R&D lab and setup which will be commissioned in this year as well. Our company is also constantly committed to investing in ESG aspects, strengthening its resolve to compliance, environmental and integrity, talent management, ecosystem management in terms of vendors, customers and stakeholders. Our subsidiary business has also started performing well. However, their operations were also impacted on account of the second wave of COVID-19. Our company has remained competitive across various business cycles, growing through every downturn. The result is that our company has emerged as one of the most renowned insoluble sulfur players across the world. The business environment continues to be a bit uncertain due to the predicted third wave. However, we are well equipped to navigate the near-term challenges based on our learnings of last year and are confident of the strength of our manufacturing will continue to drive our business relationships and growth. We are optimistic that when the market turns to an even balance, companies like us who have invested in larger capacities at a competitive cost will be at the right place to capitalize in future. Now I would like to hand over the line to Mr. Anurag Jain to update you on the financial performance of the company.
Thank you, Akshat. I will take you all through the standalone financials of the company. Total income for Q1 FY22 stood at rupees 86.5 crores as compared to rupees 46.9 crores in Q1 FY21, a year-on-year growth of 84%. Income for Q4 FY21 was rupees 106.9 crores. High year-on-year growth is on account of low base of last year. However, demand was impacted in local and global markets in Q1 on account of second wave of COVID-19. EBITDA for Q1 FY22 stood at rupees 22.8 crores as compared to rupees 9 crores in Q1 FY21, a growth of 154% year-on-year, and EBITDA for Q4 FY21 was rupees 38.7 crores. EBITDA margins for Q1 FY22 were at 26.4%. Margins have been impacted due to increase in input costs, whereas price pass-through usually happens with a lag of a quarter or 6 months. Profit after tax for Q1 FY22 stood at rupees 12.4 crores as compared to rupees 1.4 crores in Q1 FY21 and 24.8 crores in Q4 FY21. Our PAT margins for Q1 FY22 stood at 14.4%. With this, I would like to open the floor for questions and answers.
Thank you very much. We will now begin the question and answer session. Anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and 1 on the touchtone telephone. If you wish to remove yourself from the question queue, you may press star and 2. Participants are requested to use handsets while asking a question. Ladies and gentlemen, we will wait for a moment while the question queue assembles. The first question is from the line of Viraj Kacharia from Securities Investment. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for the opportunity. I just have 2-3 questions. First is on the capital allocation policy. So in the last call, you mentioned that we will be looking to invest up to 20% of net worth, in the investments portfolio. Is there any update or any rethink on that? And when you say dividend policy is now being made liberalized, so is 50% payout a base payout, or it can vary because when you say up to 50%, it can be from say 5-10% to So just want to get a perspective on that.
So I think both these aspects are very nicely covered in the note that is available on our website. What I can say is that we've traditionally been paying out 20%, and now the intent is to pay out 50%, subject to the free cash flow being available. So we have not written 50% just for writing it. It is also because we hope and expect to be paying out something close to that. As far as the investments is concerned, I think we've got a nice note there as to how we plan to utilize retained earnings, and it's quite clear over there.
Okay. So if you look at our vision, if, as you put it out in the annual report, and which you have communicated repeatedly, is to be present in every tier of the world, right? And I would like to really congratulate the promoters, the top management on the stellar operating performance, prudent and sound capital allocation they have been making consistently, single-mindedly to achieve this vision. But as a shareholder or a long-term investor, it's a little perplexing, and also you feel disadvantaged, given that you will still look to pursue the investment. I mean, the question here is that are we still a chemical company focused on achieving the stated vision, or we are now a holding company having a business from manufacturing of rubber chemicals to managing a wide set of portfolio investments? I mean, an area which in the latter part we don't have any expertise per se. So, if the interest of the promoters per se is to really pursue the latter part, then why not just share the maximum cash, surplus cash we have, to minority shareholders via much higher payout or buyback every year, so that even we get an equal opportunity to decide what's best use, we fit for the cash. So just a feedback we are sharing, because on the business side, we have done a phenomenal job in terms of having that focus and vision, and we are on route to achieving that. But just on the capital allocation, this feels minority shareholders are significantly disadvantaged.
So I think let me answer your question in 2 parts. Firstly, pretty much all the future free cash flow we are saying we are going to pay out as dividend. So that's one part, because when we say 50% of PAT, that basically is very close to majority of the free cash flow that will be generated after removing money required to repay loans and capex and all those things. So that is one part. Second, the corpus that is here, it's good to maintain optionality. We may have acquisition opportunities, we may have other diversification, JVs. For those kinds of things, we need to retain some cash on the books. And that's the reason we are not paying out the cash that is there. But most of the future cash flow is going to be paid out as dividend.
So basically, my question here is not about having a surplus cash on the balance sheet. That's okay, since we're looking at opportunities which may come at certain time in the future. The question is largely in terms of the quality of those investments which we are making, either in terms of AIs or startups and IPOs and all that. I mean, wouldn't one find it more prudent be parking that surplus cash, say, in a bond or a debt mutual fund or in a fixed deposit or in a bank account, which ensures that the money stays intact 100%, for us to make best use of it in the future.
See, I think this is being governed by a committee in the board. The board is also directly supervising it. So there is no right or wrong answer to this. I think this is more a philosophical discussion. What you are saying is also right. What someone else is saying is also right. What the board and all are doing in their wisdom is also right. So I think this is a matter of perception.
Okay. The second question is on the other expenses. If you see Q&Q, we've seen a drop in sales, but other expenses are not in a drop per se. So is there any one-off in this, or how should we understand this? So the utilization would have been also lower.
So when you say other expenses, you are comparing with which quarter, please?
Q1 quarter on quarter. Q4 versus Q1.
Q1 to Q1. Okay. Now in Q1 in June, most of the senior members had taken salary cuts. There was no increment. Salary cuts were there. In this quarter, salary had been restored, and there has been some increments this year. So there's a substantial difference because of that. Then the major difference is that other expenses also include power and fuel, packing and freight, which has more than doubled or nearly doubled from last quarter because of the quantity which has been sold. So these are the two major reasons why the other expenses have increased. But otherwise, the baseline other expenses are not increasing.
Okay, so going forward, as the utilization improve and the volumes pick up, this will be the base expenses, right? You won't see a similar increase in.
No. So if the volumes pick up, obviously freight will go up, power and fuel will go up, packing expenses will go up. So other expenses will go up. So there's a portion of other expenses which will go up in pro rata to the.
Okay, fine. I'll come back in. Thank you.
Thank you. Reminder to the participants, to ask a question, please press star and 1. The next question is from the line of Aditya Khetan from S&M. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. So my first question is if we can highlight the volume growth for Q1 FY22 and for the FY21.
So what I have said already was that that the volume has nearly doubled. So that I've already indicated. It's not totally double, but nearly twice the last year's.
Okay, and what was the FY21 volume growth figure?
No, we do not give exact volumes, please.
Or utilization figure, if we can share them.
It's the same thing, no?
Okay. Sir, my second question, so what is the current penetration level in the United States? Because there, so we are targeting majorly. Also, if you can tell us what is the market size in the United States currently, which we are targeting?
The market size in the United States is around 35,000 tons.
Okay.
35 to 40,000 tons. And we have started making inroads. So we are still in early stages. And hopefully we should increase our market share there.
Okay, so somewhat about the 1,000 to 2,000 tons we can take as a figure as of now in the US, which we could be doing right now?
It's a little higher than that.
Yeah. Currently, we are already doing a bit higher than 2,000.
Okay. So my third question, sir, we are manufacturing almost 3 kind of grades, that is the high dispersion, high stability, and special grade. If you can split this into percentage as to how much is high dispersion, high stability, and special grade.
So if all of these put together are now, I would say, 90% or more of our total production. I cannot split offhand between HS and HD, but if you look at HS, HD, and special grades, they would constitute more than 90% of our total production.
Okay, so just would okay, so that special grade component would be a much higher as compared to the high dispersion, or would it be lower or similar? Just a
No, HS and HD would constitute the major part, and the specialty grades are less in percentage.
Okay. Sir, about 67% of the sales is towards export. So have you witnessed any freight challenges because of the second COVID wave, particularly to the US and the other economies?
I didn't get your question once again. What was the first part? 67%?
Sir, our major sales is towards the export. So roughly around 65 to 70% is our export. So have you witnessed any freight related challenges, particularly in United States, EU and other economies?
Yes. So freights have gone up, and that has been a challenge. We have been managing it. In fact, if you are aware that even container availability is becoming an issue for many people. Fortunately, we have also managed that well. And I think once the freight rate normalizes, which should happen.
Okay.
Yeah. No, but this is one thing that is, a big question mark, even looking at Q2, Q3 and onwards, because there's very little we can do about this container availability and freight rates and all that. And this is an external aspect which will have a significant impact on our P&L, and there's little we can do about it.
Okay. Sir, so just a repeat to the earlier participant question. Sir, on a sequential basis, the revenue has fallen, but still the other expenses have gone up. So you had said that the power and fuel cost has almost doubled. Now going ahead, considering the volumes will go up, so are you expecting power and fuel to go up from here on also?
So what I said was that the power and fuel, I did not say doubled. I said that this constitutes power and fuel, packing expenses and freight. So when my sales have gone up, then all these things will go up. So going forward also, though they will not go up on per metric ton basis, but they would go up on an absolute basis. For example, if I were to produce double the quantity I am producing now, so all these expenses will double, right? Because these are more of a variable nature.
Okay. Sir, one last question, sir. Which are the 2 to 3 major raw material, and also if you can help that split into percentage wise if possible?
So our major raw material is sulfur, and then we have oil. So these are the 2 major raw materials. Our standard product that we sell in the market is 80% by weight is sulfur and 20% by weight is oil.
Okay. Sir, in the initial commentary, so you had said that because the raw material prices had went up, so you had not been able to pass on the same, and the similar impact has been seen in the margins. And you had also said that the raw material prices have peaked. Consider if the crude prices, they again start to inch up from $70 to around $80-90. So again, we could see further increase in the raw material prices, or what is your sense?
So sulfur and the oil that we use do not carry a direct correlation to the oil. And if you look at it historically, the price of sulfur and oil used to be lower even when the price of crude was higher than this. So there is no direct correlation. They have their own supply-demand dynamics. That is why, looking at every aspect, we feel that they have peaked. We have been closely monitoring global prices, indices, trends, production parameters, how the production is happening across the world, and that is why, our analysis is that they might have peaked and should be having better prices in the future.
Okay. And from where are we taking this coating oil from?
So oil, we have indigenous suppliers as well as global suppliers. So we buy globally and we buy from India also.
Okay, so 50% would be exports and 50 domestic. Would that be okay?
No, I think domestic is more. Import is less.
Okay. Got it. Thank you, sir. That's all from me.
Thank you. Participants, to ask a question, please press star and 1 now. The next question is from the line of Dhruv from HDFC Asset Management. Please go ahead.
Yeah, sir. Thank you so much for the chance. Sir, say in the earlier comments you mentioned that large part of your cash flows will now be paid as dividends, and if I also probably read through your dividend policy,
A large part of free cash flow.
Free cash flow, yeah. And the dividend policy, it seems, so is it fair to say that the alternate investments or the other investments that we are planning to do, on an incremental basis, we will not be actively considering them, and except for what we have already committed, I believe, we will not be considering them, if I read the statement and your earlier comment correctly?
Again, what I said is that we have certain retained earnings in our company. I said I don't expect the retained earnings to grow by much because most of the free cash flow is going to be paid out.
Yeah. Okay. So that does also imply that incrementally, on an incremental basis, what I was wondering from, we won't be the alternate investments or the other investments that we were doing, that won't be actively considered now.
I'm sorry, I don't get your question.
So on an incremental basis, we will not be allocating further capital to the investments, the other kinds of investments that we were looking at earlier.
No, I don't think I made such a statement.
Okay, got it, sir. So the second thing was on the volume outlook. Now you said that the outlook has improved currently. So should we assume a broadly kind of full utilization from the current levels, from current times?
So what kind of levels did you say again? Please can you come back?
You said the demand outlook has improved significantly now, given everything has restarted largely. So should we assume broadly full utilization, or broadly if you can give some thoughts on the demand outlook now?
So obviously we are hoping for a much better demand outlook and therefore a better offtake from our facilities, and certainly the consequence will be a better capacity utilization. Was that your question?
Yeah. Got it. And sir, lastly, we export quite a significant portion. Now, is what we sell is on CIF basis or we sell on FOB basis? So I'm trying to understand, does the freight cost impact you in terms of realization, or it's a cost to the customer?
No. Mostly our exports are on CIF basis, delivered basis or CIF basis.
Okay. So the temporary increase in freight cost will have some implication for us.
Yes, so it will have implications for us. Obviously, our customers also do realize, and we are seeing some price correction on that impact. But overall, even now in July, also the freights have increased. So let us see how this plays out.
August is further increasing.
Sorry, sir?
August is again there is a further increase because there are a lot of containers which are held up in China. And the free flow is being further affected. So let us see how this plays out.
Sure. And sir, how frequently do you revise your contracts with your customers? I mean, what duration are they? In terms of, say, for example, when is the next price reset that happens? Because probably for the new contracts you will set it up at the new freight rates, but for the older contracts?
So what happens is that most of our contracts are either on quarterly or half yearly. So I think if you look at it tonnage wise, it will be a kind of equally split with a little bit bias on the quarterly side. So these are the, so at least for a quarter the prices are fixed.
Okay, got it. And part of this higher shipping cost impact would also be visible in the 1Q numbers also. So it will, part of the impact is there in the 1Q numbers also.
Will reflect on the numbers. Yes.
Got it. Sure, sir. Thank you so much. That's helpful. Thanks.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, to ask a question, please press star and 1. The next question is from the line of Nikhil from SIMPL. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Good evening. Am I audible?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Sir, coming to your annual report, in the annual report we had mentioned that the industry dynamics for last 3-4 years had been very bad, and there was no much pricing which was happening, and there were excess capacities which were created. if we look at like last quarter or with the sale of the insoluble sulfur plant from Eastman to the PE, have we seen any plant shutdowns? And consequently, the increase in the cost structure which we are seeing, do you see that considering the strong demand, we are in a position to pass on that increased cost structure to the customers, or we are still some bit far away from that?
So to answer about the cost structure has increased and is hurting all the manufacturers of insoluble sulfur. Our tire companies also understand that there is a substantial increase in cost structure, and wherever we have talked about it, they have been happy to give increases. So it is not that the tire companies will say that though the prices have gone up, we will not take increases. Secondly, since it has hurt everyone, everybody is looking to mitigate their costs across the board. As far as your first question is concerned about shutdowns, whether there has been any unscheduled shutdown because of this thing, I am not aware of that. Obviously, if because of COVID, if there has been less supply, people might have produced less. But shutdowns of total plants, we are not aware of as such.
Okay. So just coming to the second point, first point you mentioned that the price increases are happening. The reason I'm asking is because I understand this freight cost and all which has increased and has impacted Q1. But if we look at our long-term EBITDA per ton or gross profit per ton which we were making, do you think like in a quarter or two, once the price increases and the raw material prices stabilize, we should be back to that level?
Subject to freight. Because we don't know how the freight thing is going to play out in future. For example, I go and ask for a price increase in the month of June with my customers, and I get a substantial part of it. And then again, the freight keeps on increasing in July, and now they're increasing in August. So that is something which will impact our profitability even going forward till the whole thing stabilizes.
Sure, got it. And last question, on the new the brownfield capacity which will come in October, are you seeing any tie-ups or any feelers in terms of the utilization or the capacity being tied up with the customers, or would it be like once it is in place and then only the marketing starts, or how does this?
Marketing has already started, and we have started seeing traction with our product getting approved at different customers. Now it's more about taking this process to its logical conclusion, getting the final approvals, and then actually converting it into business. But I would say we're making progress on that front.
So this would meaningfully contribute only next year, right?
In the next financial year, correct. That's correct. This would meaningfully contribute only the next financial year.
Okay, sir. Thanks a lot. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Participants to ask a question may press star and 1 now. The next question is from the line of Dhruv from HDFC Asset Management. Please go ahead.
Yes, sir. So just follow up on the earlier one. If I look at the annual report, the freight and forwarding cost used to be around 7 to 8% of our sales earlier. So how has it changed now? I mean, what's the proportion now?
So currently it is. Just give me one moment. It's about 9%, 9 to 10%.
But that was Q1.
Q1. That's what I'm saying.
Q2 has further gone up.
Okay. So Q1 was not significant, but we are seeing a further increase from Q1 levels. Got it. And so
What is it not been good?
Yeah. And so is it fair to assume, say, for example, when the next contract reset happens, the pricing would be reset at the including the freight, so all the increase in freight cost can be absorbed then by the customer, or it will all depend upon market dynamics?
As I pointed out earlier, most of the contract resets have happened in the month of June for July onwards, right? So
Okay.
these contract resets are either for July, August, September, or July to December. So the next
Okay.
contract reset would be from October.
No, but majority will be from January.
Yeah.
Majority will be from January, and I think we'll have to cross this bridge at that stage. The situation is very volatile to predict what will happen there.
Got
We'll
it.
have to cross this at that stage.
Got it. Sure. That's very helpful. Thank you so much. Thanks.
Thank you. Participants, to ask a question, please press star and 1. The next question is from the line of Amit Shah from AC Securities. Please go ahead.
Hi, good morning. Good afternoon, sir. Sir, I have a couple of questions. Sir, how has export market performed during the quarter? Have we started seeing demand traction from North America and Europe? And have we added any new customers here or geared more business from existing customers?
So the demand from Europe and USA has been normal. We did not see any downturn because of what was happening in India. The downturn was mostly in India and Asian countries. So it has mostly been normal. And yes, we are adding new customers also worldwide. So that is a continuous process we have added new customers during that also.
Okay. Okay. And sir, our phase 1 of the expansion plan is expected to commission by October 2021. So what is the order book visibility post this capacity? By when do we expect the capacity to ramp up?
So what is going to happen is obviously there will be some new orders which will happen from Q1 of calendar year 22. But looking at the new added capacity of phase 1, I think that should be the utilization of that capacity should start from Q1 of FY 22-23, as Akshat has pointed out a little earlier.
Okay. And sir, lastly, sir, of this 216 crore capex plan, how much has been incurred till June 2021? And what is the expected revenue potential from the entire capex?
So about 135 crores has been spent till June. The first phase is expected to have about 150 crores. And out of which 135 crores we have spent till June. What was your second question?
Sir, the revenue potential for this entire from this entire capex. Hello.
Yeah. So the revenue potential would be somewhere between 70 to 75 crores if the whole of this was sold. Around 70 crores.
Okay. Okay, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Reminder to the participants, to ask a question, please press star and 1. The next question is from the line of Manish from General. Please go ahead.
Thanks for the opportunity, sir. In the annual report, sir, you have written there is a statement that insoluble sulfur cycle has bottomed out, and there is in the future days to come, the prices can go up.
No, it's the other way around. What I had said was that the sulfur pricing, it appears to have peaked. It is not rising anymore.
No, sorry, Anurag. No, I think I know what you're referring to, and what I meant is that the margins and the whole economics of the industry had actually bottomed out, and investment economics had disappeared. So now, what is your question regarding that, please?
No. I was asking about the insoluble sulfur cycle has bottomed out, and the insoluble sulfur market going forward will go up.
So when it will go up and how it will go up is a different chapter.
No. The question was that has it bottomed out? That was the question.
Yes. In my view, we had reached a bottom. It will be very difficult for it to go further down.
That's right. That was my question. And the second question was about the, sir, price hikes. Have you taken the price hike from July 1st?
Yeah, some of them have been taken.
Okay, sir. Yeah, that's all, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, to ask a question, you may press star and 1. The next question is from the line of Akshay Jain from Jain Capital. Please go ahead.
Hello, good afternoon, sir. I have a couple of questions. Firstly, how is the scenario on supply side for insoluble sulfur? Any new capacities coming up globally? And secondly, what is the outlook on the tire industry with the current COVID scenario in the domestic market?
To answer your first question, I think whatever capacities had to come up have already come up. We are not aware of any new capacities which are going to come up now or which are under implementation. Let me put it this way. To answer your second question, I recently read somewhere that in Europe, the secondary market for tires is booming now because of the preference for personal travel. So that augurs well for tire consumption. So we are looking at a healthy demand for tires in worldwide. As far as domestic demand is concerned, again, the same holds true. With greater personal mobility, the secondary tire demand appears to be on the rise. So we should be looking at a healthy demand in the domestic sector also, which we feel should be growing in double digits as we have always indicated.
Okay. That's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Keshav Garg from CCIPL. Please go ahead.
Sir, very good afternoon. And sir, wanted to understand, sir, that there has been some news that some private equity has bought over Eastman, who's our competitor. So any impact on the pricing of the product, or are they basically aggressively looking up to take market share or increase volumes, or any other impact that you see due to this transaction?
I think it's too early to comment on these things. We have not even taken control of the asset to the best of our knowledge. We'll only know how they'll behave once they've actually taken control.
Okay, sir. And also, sir, have the Chinese insoluble sulfur manufacturers, have they been able to get some approvals and enter our customer base?
No. To the best of our knowledge, no.
Okay. And sir, is there any possibility of us entering the Chinese market?
Well, we keep tabs on it, but if you ask me in the near future, are we going to be getting a lot of sales from that? Then I don't have that visibility.
And so, which are the other major geographies that you are not present as of now, and in future you would like to enter?
North America, which is what we've been saying. A lot of focus is going into North America.
And so the Japanese market, so since it's the third largest automobile market in the world?
So yeah, I think I missed mentioning that. More than the Japanese market, the Japanese tire manufacturers also continue to be on our radar wherever our presence is low. And as we get volumes from them, they may even allot volumes in Japan.
Sure, sir. And sir, also, sir, last year EBITDA has been flat since the last 4 years, and we understand due to COVID and other factors. But going forward, so you think that we'll able to sustain a quarterly run rate of over 100 crore top line and around 30 crore EBITDA per quarter?
No, I think definitely. I think we should definitely, once things turn around, we should certainly start hitting 100 crore plus top line. And if we hit 100 crore plus top line, there is no, I mean, the EBITDA, there's no reason why it would not be 50 plus.
And sir, coming to a pricing arrangement with our customers, sir, what all is a pass-through? Sir, like for example, is the currency pass-through, raw material?
No, nothing is pass-through. This is all basically negotiated every quarter. I mean,
Okay,
you're asking me contractually what is pass-through and contractually no.
Sir, and what are the factors which cause our raw material prices to increase or decrease? Like you mentioned that even in the past when crude was above $100, sulfur prices were under control. So basically, what is basically causing sulfur prices to move?
So sulfur has its own demand and supply dynamics. Sulfur, as you know, is also a major component of fertilizers. So one of the biggest consumption of sulfur is fertilizers. So that is one thing which determines the price of sulfur. There was certainly to be a huge production of fertilizer, and there is no corresponding increase in availability. The other is the operation of the refineries per se. So there is no exact formula or method to say that this is what will impact. But two major things which impact the pricing of sulfur is refinery operations. Overall, if the economy goes down and overall the refineries are not running to the capacity that they normally would, then that would result in lower supply of sulfur and consequently a pressure on sulfur prices. And secondly is if there was a certain increase in consumption due to increase in fertilizer production, for example, then that could have an impact on sulfur prices.
Great, sir. And so lastly, just a suggestion, sir, that instead of dividends, sir, please do regular buybacks, sir, so that our earning per share can increase permanently, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, to ask a question, you may press star and 1. The next question is from the line of Aditya Ketan from SNM. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for the follow-up, sir. So my question is, in which manufacturing unit of Dharuhera and Mundra, where we manufacture insoluble sulfur, so where is the EBITDA per ton higher?
No, that is very difficult to say. It depends on the area that we service, where it is sold. So that would be unfair comparison to say which is EBITDA is higher.
Okay. But sir, as per the raw material availability, like so to which manufacturing unit, so the raw material availability is closer, and freight cost and power cost are low. So based on that,
let me put it this way: that we have raw materials. For example, sulfur is available in Mundra from Reliance, and in Dharuhera from Panipat refinery of IOCL. So freight-wise, except for imported raw material, wherever it is to a little extent, there is not much difference in raw material prices.
Okay, so our expansion of 11,000 metric tons insoluble sulfur is into which manufacturing unit?
It is in Dharuhera.
Okay. Okay, sir. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, this was the last question for today. I would now like to hand the conference over to the management for closing comments.
I take this opportunity to thank everyone for joining on the call. I hope we have been able to address all your queries. For any further information, kindly reach out to us or Strategic Growth Advisors. Thank you once again.
Thank you. On behalf of Oriental Carbon and Chemicals Limited, that concludes this conference. Thank you for joining us, and you may now disconnect your line.